official headquarters, and I propose to start our first ever zonal council meeting, the first since this body is a new one, and it was created based on the FIDE Charter that had been adopted back in Abu Dhabi in February. And the FIDE Zonal Council is an institution that is comprised of all zonal presidents, continental presidents, and of course FIDE Council members can also participate in the meetings. We have our agenda for today, but before we will start, we will have the count of the participants, and let me just make one remark before we will start the discussion of our agenda. We have the provision in the FIDE Charter that the internal rules of the Zonal Council have to be adopted by the General Assembly. It's Article 7.2, but in other part of the FIDE Charter, we have the provision that the Zonal Council approves its rules as well. So hopefully all of you have this draft since it was sent to all participants of the General Assembly. So if you will have any comments or proposals on the draft of the Zonal Council internal rules, it is welcome, so that we can make amendments if necessary before tomorrow's voting by the General Assembly. But anyway, the Zonal Council should look into this document and make sure that it is comfortable with the text. The main purpose of the Zonal Council is to discuss the FIDE priorities, especially in the development area, give proposals and suggestions to FIDE Council and FIDE management, review the execution of the previous year development agenda, and share best practices, of course, on all the things that FIDE is doing and what national federations and zones, FIDE zones, are doing during each year. So,
Сейчас пришлю.
Colleagues, please do not switch on your microphones unless you're given the floor by me or by the moderator, and Sonja will serve as a moderator of this session. Okay, so colleagues, do we have the count of participants?
Gennady, they're still checking.
Okay, we can.
Sorry. There are 28. 28 zonal representatives.
28 zonal council members present.
Okay. Well, we do not have any formal voting procedures today, so formally we do not need a quorum today. So it's not a problem if we will not have the majority, but of course we expect some other people to join maybe during the next few minutes. Okay, if at this point there are no procedural remarks or suggestions, can we start? If not everyone, if some people didn't receive the draft version of the Zonal Council internal rules, we will send it once again so that you can check the text before tomorrow's General Assembly meeting. And if you will have any remarks or suggestions, please send those to the FIDE office, to Sava, so that we can make necessary amendments if needed. All right, Sonja, can you please explain to everyone the agenda and then give me a floor for the report?
Sure, no problem. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Okay, everyone, thank you for being here today. I have been asked to moderate today's session. Of course, the FIDE president remains the chair. So today we're going to take you through the agenda. I'll go through with you where we would look. The FIDE president, of course, will address us because, of course, this has been interesting times, and it's important that we hear from the FIDE president what's been going on and what's expected from us and so on. Then we will have a report from the executive director, and really his focus is mainly going to be on what the development fund, how it's been used from 2019 to 2020 and so on. So he's going to do a lot of work on that. You're going to see a lot of numbers. As PDC, since we engage with a lot of your federations and so on, we'll then take you through some of our activities and processes because we want to make sure that going forward, we all on the same page and how we could find different ways to collaborate and plan into 2021, because we don't want to always be doing things in the old way. We want to find new and fresh ways of doing things. Later on, we're going to have some presentations from a few of the commissions who have been doing work and we know have been collaborating with some of your zones and federations as well. We have from the Arbiters Commission, because they've done a lot of work in analyzing the Arbiter database, and we saw some opportunities and so on for federations. We have the Global Strategy Commission. There's a lot of talk about hybrid chess tournaments. So we want to bring to the fore a little bit about how FIDE sees this going forward. We're also using this opportunity because we're coming up in the focus again on increasing the women in chess. So we have WOM also doing just a few remarks as well in terms of what it is they plan. And there's another point that what we had found in PDC, that the additional resources we felt might be useful for federations and for FIDE in general. So Shapisa will take us through a little bit about what we're doing in the PDC to help. And then the special session, we're fortunate to have Francois Stridham, the chair of the ethics committee, to go through a special session that we felt in our discussions with him and based on what we were seeing in our interactions with some of the federations and continents, a session on good governance. And of course, our chair would summarize what has happened and so on. Of course, we'll engage in any comments throughout. Okay, of course, once you go through the process, mute your mics, raise your hand, put your notes in the chat, etc., so we could manage this process as seamlessly as possible. Yeah, Mr. President.
Thank you, Sandra. So let me start with welcoming all of you once again, and with also the gratitude for the work that you are doing in each of your regions, FIDE zones. And of course, this year was not an easy one. And after the General Assembly in Abu Dhabi in February, we all had an extremely tough time as most of the normal traditional chess activities have been stopped, cancelled all around the world, just with a few exceptions where countries have been able to conduct some of the overboard tournaments, but in the minimum number, and some other activities as well. But the most of the FIDE and overall chess activities moved to online. And the pandemic is still far from over, unfortunately. So we had to adjust. We had to make sure that we continue our chess life. And I think that overall we achieved a lot during this 6 months period. So while over-the-board activities have been cancelled, we were able to partially, of course, not fully substitute those by online competitions and online activities by FIDE commissions. Starting with online competitions, we conducted a number of unofficial tournaments first, including various kind of cups. The most important one during the springtime was the Nations Cup, with a few leading nations participating in this tournament with mixed teams. But of course, by far the biggest and the most important event we had was online Olympiad that we conducted during the summertime with a few divisions competing one after another. We had more than 160 teams participating, so the vast majority of FIDE members had their teams. Of course, lots of technical difficulties related to internet connection and others, but I think that was a really good experience for the most of FIDE National Federation, FIDE members. And we learned a lot about how to organize those things, how to provide arbiters assistance, how to put teams together, how to provide anti-cheating services. And I learned myself how to identify the winners, not in a very nice way, unfortunately, but I had to announce 2 winners of the Olympiad, but that was a learning by doing process as well. Also, as a part of our Olympic movement, we just completed another huge project, the FIDE Online Olympiad for players with disabilities. And it was another success, I believe. We had more than 60 teams from 45 countries with more than 400 players participating with various kind of physical disabilities. And first time in history, FIDE has quite a comprehensive database of players with different kinds of disabilities. So we'll be able to work even better in this direction in the future. And I call all of you to make sure that in each of the zones, of your zones, hopefully all national federations step by step will have their teams of players with different kinds of disabilities, so that we can have a comprehensive Olympiad for all national teams, for the whole world, not just for the part of the world. Right now we have another big tournament, the World Cadet and Youth Championship online going on. It's a complex event, also with qualification stages organized by continents, and then we will have the final stage. So all national federations have been able to register and participate. Well, not all did that, but the majority did that. We have more than 100 countries registered, so more than 50% of FIDE members, and I think that's another success story. But of course, we all hope to shift to over-the-board tournaments, and I would like to ask you to pay a required attention to the qualification for the World Cup. We will announce all the regulations and rules very soon. Hopefully we will be able to run those World Cups again over the board, not online, during July of next year in Russia, in Sochi, the Olympic place as well, both the open section and women's section. And as we promised, we will have more players than usual. We will have 206 players in the open section instead of 128 traditionally, and 103 players in the women's section instead of 64 as it was traditionally. So more countries will be able to register to have their representatives, players for the World Cup, and many zones will have more than one player. So again, we will announce those regulations for qualification during the next few days, so that everyone will know what the rules are, and zones will be able to start and complete the qualification process. Also, I would like to inform you that yesterday the FIDE Council has tentatively approved the online chess regulations, including hybrid chess regulations. The hybrid chess is online chess played in clubs under arbiters' control, under direct arbiters' control. Arbiters are present not online but in the room where players are playing. And if the General Assembly will approve these documents tomorrow, will give a formal authority to the FIDE Council to finally approve those documents tomorrow, then FIDE zones will be able to conduct hybrid chess competitions to have the qualification process for the World Cup completed. So any zone will be able to have its zonal championship online under arbiters' control in a hybrid form. And that's a very important thing. We had requests from at least 2 zones to conduct those zonal tournaments online. So these regulations will enable you to do that. Of course, we started preparing all other documents required to have official tournaments online, including arbiters' manual, technical manuals. Those will be completed soon. Now we are again learning by doing. So regulations for each particular tournament can specify some technical details within the framework of general online regulations. But I think that would be an important achievement, and that's one of the clear priorities for FIDE right now. Another priority during the last 6 months was to secure sponsorship so that FIDE can run its development program for both 2020 and 2021. As you know, we have been forced to reduce our development budget from 2 to 1 million this year. And we still have some funds available if there are some urgent requests for support. Next year, we will have at least 1 million as well, at least, since we very much hope that the World Championship match that is scheduled for November of 2021 will bring us additional sponsorship, additional funding, and we will be able to allocate more funds to the development agenda than just 1 million. Hopefully 1.5, but we will see how it goes. You will discuss the priorities. I will not make any fixed statements before your discussion, since I would like to hear from you and listen from you what you believe the priorities should be for the next year based on the lessons both from 2019 and from 2020. It's clear that 2021, in terms of the development agenda, is going to be a mixed one, a hybrid one. We will have both online and traditional activities live in real life. Some countries will move to normal sooner, some countries later. We don't know who is going to be the first, who is going to be the last, but it's clear that it's going to be a mixed experience. So we should adjust our development agenda in such a way that it will accommodate different requests based on national circumstances, based on zonal circumstances, of course, and we'll be happy to have this mix of activities. Also, I would like to propose to you that in some cases where it is rational, to combine national plans into zonal or regional plans so that we can support bigger activities, bigger events, so joint seminars, as we did already this year, online joint competitions, etc., etc. So let's try to do it this way. I would like to report to you as well that thanks to your efforts, we've been able to reduce arrears towards FIDE from national federations, which means that we will be able to support more federations. And that was a very important development. Also, we were able to start reducing fees as we promised during the election campaign back in 2018. We eliminated most of the fees for Tier 5, we reduced fees for Tier 4, we eliminated fees for senior players. We will start reducing fees for other categories if the General Assembly will support us. So that's a part of the good news, of course, and that was possible due to the fact that we all worked hard to make chess more visible to our partners, so that the partners could contribute more to the development of chess. Of course, we also received some help from our market stakeholders, especially with those new movies going to the screens, especially the Queen's Gambit, of course. And that's an enormous boost to the game of chess all around the world, and we should both enjoy it, but also to use it for our purposes, to attract more people, to attract more partners. And of course, we received lots of help from online platforms like chess.com, Lichess, Chess24, Tarnella, and others. And they have been working very actively to support us, to support national federations. Of course, it's not for free in most cases. It requires some spending, some costs, but we are all trying to make it more affordable to everyone. So once again, the pandemic will last for some time. We should not relax, and we should create flexible plans, agile plans, so that we can have both traditional and online activities. I would like to call you to share best experiences today, and as a follow-up to this meeting, to summarize your findings. My colleagues will present you their ideas. I need your input both tomorrow for the General Assembly and of course for the next year. So thanks a lot. I will stop on this. Of course, I'm open to answer any questions you might have either today or to follow up in email conversations. So let's proceed with our agenda further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, I'm not seeing any after those remarks. As Mr. Volkovich said, that at the end, I mean, we take the time to digest all that is going to be presented today. And at any point, if there's need, feel free to ask the questions, of course, using the process, raise your hand, put it in the chat, etc. But we will continue with the agenda for now. And I have Ian Wilkinson. Ian?
Good morning, Mr. President, Mrs. Johnson. I had put a note in the chat that I am dressed in a three-piece suit, not just to impress the ladies or the president, but I have a special court hearing in a minute, and I'm going to have to hop off the link, and I will get back. So that is the reason for my dress like this. It's not just to impress the ladies. But if I'm going to ask you, please, to Mr. President and members, great to see you again. If you can excuse me, possibly for 30 minutes, not more than an hour, I should be back.
Thanks. And you're a nice-looking man, and
I don't.
So like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I will be back. I'll be back.
Thank you. And we have
thank you for letting us know. Mr. President, I saw Hal Bond had his hand up. I don't know if Hal, if you want to just say something now, if you want to wait to the end.
No. The floor is yours, Hal.
Hal?
Oh, thank you. From the new zonal rules, it strikes me that our most central obligation is to make sure that our zonal tournaments happen, our zonal championships happen. This to me is a central obligation, and I wondered if the QC chairman had anything to contribute to the extent that we have direct titles in play. Is there anything we need to know from QC? And maybe that'll be covered later. That's all.
Yes, I'm just thinking, Mr. President, it's up to you, but I'm thinking maybe we could just defer that a little bit at this point.
Yeah, let's give time to Nick to think about that. And meanwhile, again, not covering the title, the direct title subject, certainly we want all zones to conduct their zonal tournaments, and if it is not possible to do over the board, then in the hybrid format, provided that the General Assembly will give us the permission to do it tomorrow. And I remember that Canada didn't identify its champion for the Women World Cup, didn't have time to do it. So that's one of the things that how you should address somehow.
Thank you. Yes, I will.
Okay, great. So now, thanks everyone. Okay, so could we move on now to the FIDE Executive Director, Victor Balagon, who would share a little bit about what happened with the Development Fund over the past 2 years to contrast 2019 with 2020. Victor?
Thank you, Sonja. Can you
share
the presentation? Thank you. So, dear Mr. President, dear colleagues, good to see you all here. I will just give some numbers. Actually, yeah. So we have bit. Yeah. Okay. Next, please. So yeah. As most organizations, COVID-19 affected the funding for 2020. We see the numbers. We started very well. Actually, it was projected 3 million in 2019, and we somehow distributed proportionally to federations and continents. Actually, it was ACC. It was we have this USD and euros. It was this way. In 2020, including that we didn't have many incomes from tournaments, we could assure this million, and the proportion is distributed 600 and 400,000. Please, next. So we also actually helped a few affiliated associations, Francophone and Mediterranean. Actually, we're contacting others as well, but there is still progress, some potential to realize in the future. So, because sometimes the organizations, they're not coming with, let's say, the request which is aligned to our priorities, and because sometimes they simply kind of say that the continents will take care of it. But this is only the start, so we are working. There are many affiliated associations, and we are willing and ready to work with them and to help them to develop their ideas as well. Next, please. So see, we see here the approved funding in US dollars by federations. There is a difference, of course, that was a non-pandemic year, and there we have more than 1 million, and which is important. We managed to cover 77. It's a very impressive number of federations, and that's a very good work of the PDC Commission and the councillors. We have this presidential assistance, Continental assistance for. They're also council members, so we see there are many federations that didn't know how to fill the forms, how to make the request, but due to the support of PDC, it happened, and it was even overestimated, the 77 federations. And 2020, of course, we have a bit more modest number, but still impressive, and we still have some federations on the pipe also. Please, next. Yeah, this is an interesting one because we see the federation funding by continent, and we discussed it, of course, before. Just a few numbers. We see in 2019, actually, as well as in 2020, America by far is the best in submitting the applications, executing organizing the events, and actually it's practically almost all federations which are eligible to be funded, they are getting funds. Africa, as expected, in 2019 was very good work done by PDC and especially by CHEPISO. So we see, of course, the Continental Chess Association, the African Chess Association, of course, contributed as well, and we see good numbers. Less active was Asia and Europe. Europe, it's understandable because not so many federations are eligible for funding, but Asia catch up in 2019 with more events on the continental level. We see many applications still, even with the COVID, in 2020. Next, please. Yeah, this is the most interesting because we do analyze together with PDC, and we asked external an analytical person to make an analysis on how the funds are used and what is the effect of this. And here we, first of all, we see for what the funds were used in both years. Of course, in 2020, we see the specific of online, so there was much less traveling. Let's say this international event participation, you can see very big number in percentage in 2019 and much less in, but in the beginning we still had in 2020. This online activities, also thanks to the possibility to have this online activities, we increased the numbers of different kind of conferences, coaching, trainings and seminars. For the next year, we are asking PDC together with, of course, here with the Zonal Council support to decide which would be the priorities for the next year, since we're expecting, as Mr. President said, this will be hybrid year most probably. So we might have both online events and as well as over-the-board events. So next, please. Yes, again the same proportion more or less. 2019, 2020, only this time we are talking about continents. I must say that this worked very well, that we have this flexibility of supporting both federations and continents. And I would repeat Mr. President's appeal for zones, for zonal presidents to be more active in participating in this continental program and joining the forces. Sometimes it can be some projects together in the continental level. Sometimes some federation can join their forces to efforts to make some seminar, because of course the amounts decreased. Next year, we, as a minimum, we plan to have the same million like this year, so which means more or less 5,000 per federation. But if you join few federations, then you can have a really big event or project. So that's also interesting, and especially this is exactly where the zonal presidents can interfere and can or help to coordinate forces and to apply for that. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. This nice. Plates. Again, we see what is interesting about this graphics is that in 2020 we see Asia very, very active, and I must say it's not only the money they received from FIDE, but their projects were very well funded and supported by the Asian Chess Federation. So there were extra money brought in, similar case like for Europe. These two continental federations, they're more, let's say, economically doing well. So we see very good activity in both, especially in 2020. As it's written here, Europe got this funding, which looks like a big number, and it can be questioned why this big number for Europe. But actually, the actual number is 40,000 less. 40,000 went for this mutual project with European Chess Union and FIDE Education Commissions. At the end of the day, we want to produce some materials which all continents can get use of it, and this will be kind of guides of teaching chess in school. So we hope this project will be good, useful for everybody. So this 40,000 actually, we allocated this into Europe, but actually it's like a general scope. Next, please. Yeah, now we see how continental federations, they use their fundings. And definitely the biggest priority was for tournament organization in 2019. And we see more diversification in 2020 by usage. I want to mention this bigger number of money spent on women in chess, and that I think it's a success of the Women's Commission. This year we had much better cooperation, of course, on women's insistence, and the cooperation with the continental federations, with PDC, so with all other commissions. So that's why we have more projects. Actually, that was the idea we were trying to promote in 2019, and but only in 2020 it really started working. So this priority, we assisted the Women's Commission, and we've heard their wishes to increase their support. Of course, we are ready, especially after this movie. It's a must. But of course, we will do more in this direction. As we see, also chess in education was much more promoted this year, 2020, again due to this possibilities of online activities. And I want to say that FIDE will never step back. We always will be hybrid organization from now on. We will have over-the-board activities, but also all these online activities, they are very efficient. And they're, of course, much less costs, and we should use this modern tool of having different kind of activities. So next, please. Yeah, this is just a few analyses. We tried to see what is the impact of this actually development, the whole development program, development funding on real FIDE numbers, which are FIDE registrations. We see here there is a very, actually almost straight line you can put if you join all these numbers. And there is a trend of increasing the FIDE registrations, which is a very good moment. As we see, it's not started only in 2018. It goes steadily from 2017 even, but it's important that that continues. And we can see also that those countries who receive the funds, they're also growing. The same we can see on this graphic. Also, there is a progress, clear progress on the rate of growth of registration year on year. To be honest, we have to improve our work here. It's a little bit of autocritics on with working with data. We're really willing to have more data and to have more criteria to analyze the efficiency of funding spending, and generally more analytical data and FIDE that would help us to orientate better. For example, for the next year, how to decide which priority, that would help us a lot. But this basic numbers, please, next. It's also okay. Next, please. Next, please.
No, this is the correct slide, Victor. This is tournaments.
Tournaments, no, okay. Yeah, sorry, it's just somehow. Additional data was obtained from a list office. Yeah, as we said, and on tournaments, we see the same trend. Of course, 2020, we put it apart because It's really those heroes who organize tournaments, and hopefully, thanks God, that there was no any incident we know about. So there were some national championships, even some team championships. But there was, of course, very few, and in these times it's a very heroic, of course, happened. But otherwise, the trend is a steady trend, and we are growing, and definitely we will catch up. Next, please. Okay, now a few sentences that, yes, as promised in the elections, new administration is demonstrated its commitment to help federations to develop. And this development fund, it's a key, it's becoming like a key factor for developing chess and FIDE. Of course, we are ready to listen to all proposals, ideas, critics, of course, but there is clear general positive impact. Here I would add that beside the federations and continents, I would add also the zonal presidents are encouraged to align all requests for funding to FIDE priorities. Of course, the zonal presidents, they should be coordinating this with either with the federations or continents. We will not change the direct financial system, financing and submitting system, but the zonal presidents are welcome to contribute to this. Of course, any other proposal coming from the zonal council will be also considered by FIDE Pdc. FIDE has consistently demonstrated the transparency. Yes, that was one of the promises, and I'm really very thankful to Sonja for that, because there are many situations when we are asked to, let's say, to close the eyes and to, but from procedural point of view, I think we keep the situation under control, and there is full transparency. All the materials are published. There is no political, let's say, preferences. So there is a really very clear procedure, and the core of this procedure is, of course, Sonja. Thank you so much. Okay, and FIDE policy on not funding. Yes, this was also important that we made a condition for in order to access to funding. So you have either to have a rescheduled payment calendar and either to an agreement or just to pay the debt. If you have debt more than 1,000, then you are not allowed to access the funds. And that helped us. That was exactly what Arkady said, Mr. President said in the beginning, that we improved our numbers. So much more debts paid this year. And that was, and actually it's not only about money, it's about also some discipline, some accuracy in paying the debts and with numbers. So we see much better situation now. Next, please. So I want to thank you so much for your attention. I don't know, by timing, I think it was more or less okay. And any questions, of course, I will be ready to answer you or now or later. And I wish you all good luck.
Thank you very much, Victor, for sharing with us. Mr. President, is there anything else that you want to add to that, or do we go ahead with the agenda?
Since it's important to listen more than to talk. So.
Okay, no problem. Just checking in. I'll be checking in from time to time, right? Thank you so very much. So once again, thank you. At this point, as moderator, I will share with you. So Victor did the high level, the numbers and so on behind what we're doing. I get the fun job of taking you through the little nuts and bolts of some of the processes of the PDC as we engage federations and continents. So as Carolina is sharing. So firstly, so we go to the next slide. Go ahead. Okay, so during the course of over the past 2 years, actually, Victor would have mentioned that we have a defined process, and this process is on the PDC's website to apply for funding and so on. So the first thing I'm going to address with you is at the level of the federations. Now, these graphics that you're seeing here were actually designed by our Secretary, Carolina Munoz, as part of our social media efforts. So these are actually on Facebook, were shared via Facebook, because we realized not everyone knew what was the process to apply for funding. So essentially everything is on the PDC's website, because we don't want you to rely on an email, for example, to get information. So things are already placed on the PDC's website. The PDC's website, under the URL given there, has all the documentation which you could download. Again, not needing an email from the PDC to share that with you. And finally, we want to express very clearly that the process starts with an email to FIDE funding. Now, many times people send emails to different people, to the president, to Victor, to me. The process starts with an email to FIDE funding. That's our controlled process. Other people could be copied, it's not a problem, but we just want to make this a point. And we also shared, you would see as part of our campaign to communicate, what are some of the tips? Because again, we got some applications which were more than what the designated levels were. That will cause a delay. And some other sorts of tips, make sure it's aligned to the priorities, which were clearly spelled out by the executive director in May and then in June. So we want to make sure that we remind persons of these tips, right? And of course, as the executive director said, if you were or are in arrears, you are not allowed to access funding. That process, that means the PDC is no longer involved. You will have to have a discussion with accounts. As we move on, I want to take us to the Continental funding process. So this is a little bit different, because we had extensive discussions at the beginning of 2019 with Continental of how it is we would try to operate this particular fund. And we try to make it as easy as possible, because a lot of the heavy lifting was done at the beginning of the sessions, at the beginning in 2019. So there's a clear understanding of roles. So of course, so in this case, the continental bodies would be given the equivalent of, say, a certain amount at the beginning of the year, of which they could then access against that amount. Yeah, and once it doesn't exceed, we still assess to make sure it's still aligned to priorities, because sometimes we may still get one or two requests that are not as aligned to what we had previously discussed or arranged. And sometimes even if it's outside, we could still have a discussion to see whether we could treat with it on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstance. There's a process, as we said, that we assess, which is what I just described, and that's when that's the PDC a back end finishes, and then it goes to the executive director and the treasurer. So understand, this is the process, right? But it must start from FIDE funding. People send things to me. I am not the beginning of the process. If you do things like that, it could be liable to delay your request. You send things to Victor, sometimes it could delay your request. It starts from FIDE funding. There's a process defined which begins with them, and we are involved, right? So we could be copied, nothing wrong with that, but let's try and stick to the process, right? And of course, once it's done, the Continental is advised. If there's a particular schedule, that is also shared. Like if you're getting it in a particular month, that is also shared with you. And that process takes between 1 to 2 weeks. We have processed things much shorter, depending on the need. But really, guys, according to all the documentations, ideally, we should get requests at least 2 weeks in advance. Yeah? So we move through. So we just want to talk very briefly about some of the collaboration efforts for 2020. Of course, you saw the difference with WOM and in terms of the allocation of funding. So we're very, very happy. And of course, Eva will talk a little bit more about her plans later on. But we've done quite a bit of collaboration with many commissions, because as the FIDE president says, and as well as the executive director, this is how you optimize the resources that are available. That's how you get the best out of the best return on investment. So that's why we made sure that we had these kinds of engagements. So you saw with WARM, with the different continents, we have 3 there, even though I know there are discussions, and there were discussions earlier on with the ACC as well, because they actually set up a woman's commission under ACC, which is a really good development. Of course, we have discussions with our commission. That's why we also have our presenting today. And of course, TRG commission, lots of training programs all across all continents. So we're happy to see that. You're going to see today somebody that, normally you don't really hear about ethics commission unless it's in a kind of a more negative type light, but you see here how we're engaging our resources with Francois Stridham. He's going to be here with us later today to share a little bit about what they see and how we could do things a little bit better within our respective jurisdictions. And finally, with Continents as usual, we very much appreciate that Continents as usual continue to share their plans at the beginning of the year. That's why this meeting is very important to help inform, because as the executive director said and the FIDE president said, there should be a process where there is participation, so that should be reflected in the plans thereafter. As we move on. So here I'm using the opportunity because it's so interesting. The FIDE president and I didn't really talk exactly what he was going to say, but I think this is what we're trying to get at in terms of levels of participation, right? What we want is alignment. Now, alignment could be top down, it could be bottom up, or it could be a combination. So what we're saying at every point, we should have federation engagement. Zones should be talking to federations, right? What do we do? Not just about tournaments, we do that very well already. We know how to organize our zonal events and so on already. But other things, what are some of the other things? We saw some collaborations in terms of training seminars. That's coming up, for example, in ACC very soon. And some others in Asia, they also did a very good job with that. So then you have the zone engagement. The zone then harnesses all this information and then makes a decision on the priorities, which it then should share with the continent. So we really appreciate and really would encourage that continents really have these important discussions to make sure that any plans that you have are really inclusive of all the zones and so on within your respective jurisdictions. And of course, as the FIDE president said, he wants to hear from us because that helps also to inform what FIDE wants to do in the future. So even though he will have his vision and some objectives and so on, there are other bits of information that will be critical in order to make sure that any kinds of activities are relevant and meaningful for the wider community. So this is how we get some sort of alignment and not disparate types of activities. Yeah, we move on. Okay, so what we did here in the PDC is we said, you know what, let's just give you a very simple tool. This is going to be up on our website, just so that zones could plan, continents could plan, if you want to just capture certain initiatives and objectives, because remember, everything is related to what do you see for your zone? What do you see for your continent? And then you make sure you have those activities that are aligned if you want to reach the desired outcome. So we're saying, you know what, if it's not documented, there's no way we could track it properly. So try and document. We're not asking for pages of documents. That is not useful in the main because it's not practical to manage. So if you have a very simple tool to manage what is going on in initiatives and so on, if you're at the level of the zone, what is going on in the federations that we need, that the zone will handle, as well as at the level of the continent, what is going on at the zone. So again, you're asking your question, what are these initiatives that we should engage in order to meet our zonal or continental objectives? And of course, at the end, it will be at the FIDE level. So this is just a tool. This will eventually be on the PDC's website. We'll talk a little bit about our resource area in a bit, but I just wanted to let you know that we'll put forward just a suggestion. You don't have to use it, but we think it's very useful. We move on. So it's not just good to just we in the back end as the PDC, we're not in the front, we're not in tournaments and so on. So we're really running in the background for a lot of things. We are the enablers in a lot of cases. So what we've been trying to do is expand our outreach. We did set up some social media channels on Facebook and YouTube, but we've been using primarily Facebook. That is managed by Carolina Munoz. And here you would have several tips and so on, and she'll take us through now as we go through many different things we would have shared. And we have a few examples, so we move on. So we have our Facebook page, we move on. Our YouTube. So this is like, for example, and I'll talk a little bit about our FIDE forums. All those things are on our YouTube channel. All those discussions we put on our YouTube channel. Move on. Okay, and you see, this is where we start sharing information. You know, how many federations got information. Again, along the principles of transparency, it's important that we share and we find different means to share, not just within our community. So this is how the social media helps us. And of course, in some cases, FIDE now could take some of this information to help share, but this is the kind of messaging. So people will see all the time what's going on within the PDC. As we move on. Right, again, just more here, we have KPIs because we know people are not as comfortable in some cases with KPIs. So again, we have some tips on how it is you do the KPIs. These tips, just like how they're in social media, are eventually going to be put on our website in the designated areas. So you have a full resource base for some of these planning items. We move on. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the FIDE forums. Now, some of you were involved because we did it via zone. So this is the summary of all the discussions that we had in July and August. So we did it by zone and by language. So we had some of these forums in French. Of course, I had a French translator, in Spanish, in one case, Russian, and in another case, we had access to Arabic, but I don't think we needed it because the people were fluent in, proficient in English. So you see here, as again, using the same type of philosophy as the FIDE president had suggested, we need to hear from you. If we don't, we need to come to you. So this was a way for us to try and be proactive in our engagement with the federation. So we try to understand what are the things that are going well, where you're having challenges, especially given what has happened in 2020. So we were very happy to have these discussions. You see, it's a lot. It took a lot on the team, but the council, they were always present. If it's 9 o'clock in the night or the middle of the day, it happens. So I want to thank my team for supporting, to making sure that this happened. But let's share a little bit about what we saw, which we felt was worthy of sharing now. So we go to the next slide. So these are some of the observations. So when we say that COVID-19 had an adverse impact, it was very clear in the discussions. You realize almost every conversation, there was some comment made about what COVID-19 had done. We start hearing about the about persons, of course, not being able to, everything is online, but even with the online, people started to get fatigued. People went to their second lockdowns. I mean, we got a whole host of rich information. So we understood what was happening. And the other thing that we realized impacted was the reduction in sponsorships. Because there was limited activity, there seemed to have been a direct correlation with the level of sponsorship, either at the government level or private level. So we had some issues there. So it was good to understand. We also saw that we had some federations, even though they're still on paper and they're operating, they were really struggling with resources. And I'm hoping that this zonal meeting, we could address some of those things, because you have some federations with just 1 or 2 people running the show. And even though they have a team, you see then that they're not getting the kind of support. So we have to find ways, because remember, it's one family. We have to find ways to make sure that everybody, that there's equity and that everyone is able to come to the table in a fair way to do what is needed to develop chess. Here, I think this is something that FIDE needs to look at as well. Chess is still not seen as a sport in some jurisdictions. So it's important that we, of course, we've come to you before with this kind of questioning, but it's important for FIDE to know this, because we may need to do lobbying at a broader level to try and see what we could do to change that impression. We also saw, and it was reflected in the graphs, that people started to use the opportunity to train their players. It was really good to see that now we're saying, let's invest in our players, our youth, our older players, our top players. So let's make this COVID-19 an opportunity now to help develop that capacity. The executive director already mentioned the things about the arrays, so I won't go into that any more than it's done. And of course, we have requests and for hybrid version of play and getting it rated and so on. So that's why in this particular meeting, based on feedback, we're going to have someone from the Global Strategy Commission talking to us a little bit about hybrid tournaments. So all this information has been shared again with the level of the council, the management board and so on, because it's not just important to have the meetings, it's also important to have the feedback. So we move on. So just some other things as I begin to wrap up. You would see here, as we mentioned, and this came up actually in Abu Dhabi. There were some questions when we did that set of training in the workshops. Let's have a resource area for some, you know, like just to share either templates, plans, presentations, and so on. So we did set that up recently with the help of the listener office. And of course, there are things that we're working on, which includes the Federation Management Handbook, which we will address shortly. You would have also seen, or some of you may have seen in the newsletter, FIDE is also embarking upon a corporate social responsibility initiative. So we'll hear more about that soon, but we are actively involved in that. And finally, which we think will help how we do what we do and help us get the data that we want, we are trying to move towards a fully online application for federations to start, because that's where the majority is, followed by Continental submissions. We think that if we capture information at the point of input, then it will make it easier for us to have the data and then analyze it and then report. So that's it in terms of other initiatives. And as we close, right? So again, we never stop at the PDC. We never stop. We're always trying to find ways in which we could be more effective. So that is ongoing. We also suggested that FIDE zones and continents, we know you do it already with tournaments, but we should have a calendar of activities, not just because of the online. So whether you're having a workshop, a seminar, just some sort of conference or so on, then it should be in one overall type calendar. If you look at, and I want to take a look at Arbitus. Arbitus has done a good job in having a calendar as well. So we're looking at the level of from the view of FIDE zones and continents. I think it would be useful to have that. We will continue focusing on building transparency, but not without accountability. Some of you may think that we are a little bit tough when we send back requests and so on for further review, but that's just to make sure that everyone is being held to account, because we are being held to account, to make sure that the applications are in order, that it makes sense and the quality is preserved. We also saw the need to adopt a more data-driven approach. Now, the only way the FIDE could do this is if the federations and continents recognize that this is key for anything that we want to do from now into the future. Those organizations that work with data are the ones that really have a good chance of doing well and really working positively towards their sustainability. And the PDC Fed forums clearly shows that federations need to be engaged. So it can't just be only when we have a problem, that we need to be proactively engaging federations, because that is when we could pick up maybe matters before they escalate. And as usual, as we say in the PDC, Team PDC is always ready and willing to serve. Thank you. Yeah, so these are our PDC contacts. So please know it well, our Facebook, email, and website. So it was important that we know this. And please follow us on the social media so you could get information that would be coming out from the PDC. So on behalf of everyone, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know if there are any other questions now as we moderate, or were we clear? Yeah? Good, thank you very much. So this now, you saw that I mentioned here that we really focus on collaboration and so on. So now we have this segment, we're going to look at a few commissions are going to share with us some of what we've had discussions with and how they could impact the zones and federations and so on. So we're going to begin with Laura. So if we could give Laura from the Arbiters Commission access to share.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm really pleased and honored to be with you on this historic day of first meeting of the Zonal Council. If you can see my screen, you can guess our favorite hobby with Sonja. It's observing data. Okay, this is not the only hobby, but I mean, this is something we considered important. We had a meeting a few weeks ago between PDC and the Arbiters Commission, and really, we were on the same page that data is real key in order to understand where we are, also decide where we want to go. So of course, on the picture here, I'm not asking you to read in detail the table. First of all, because I made it this morning, because we are building our database step by step, day after day. And I would like also to thank very much Vladimir Kukayev from the FIDE IT, because he helped us a lot to produce data, to produce some indicators. So just, this is a kind of illustration. And of course, when you want to go further, we are always open as far as it's about arbiters, of course, because I don't want to go on other scopes which are not under our responsibility. But about arbiters, we are always happy to discuss, share data with you in order to understand what are the best projects we could work on. So this one is putting in perspective the context for continent, zone, federation. What I call the context is the number of active rated players, number of tournaments. What we could call the number of participants is basically the number of people who went to tournament. It can be several times the same person, of course, to have an idea if the federation is big in number of players. And then if we have only a few arbiters, maybe we have a gap. But if we have a lot of arbiters, a lot of players, we stay aligned. So also to check about the demographics. As we are in the council, I put the zonal level here. Those colors, they just show that, for instance, we calculated the higher classified arbiters. So most of the zones have an IA category A arbiter. Only a few of them don't have at the moment, which means the presence worldwide is pretty good. Then, of course, identified the different levels, also by gender. And we have some contacts as well with the Women's Commission. But we haven't had the opportunity so much to speak about data. So I guess that we will also have some fun with Eva and Ilaha in the future about where we can pick projects for women overall. So far, I know that there is quite some activity at continental level in that respect. More internally speaking, of course, training of arbiters, those are FIDE arbiter seminars. This one is just showing where we didn't have in the last 2 years seminars. So this can also be a clue where we want to encourage future seminar to be organized. And finally, the right section here is about title application. So this one is even more internal as far as I'm concerned, except that application for titles comes from the federations. So it means that when I have a high number of titles rejected or titles which are conditional, it means that we need to help the federations better understand how to make complete application, proper application, so that they don't get rejected, because it's waste of time, waste of money for everyone. So you can see that on this single slide, we have different kinds of data, but all of them can be interesting in various contexts. Also, another few examples, of course, when you have visual clues of the situation, we can see, I start, it's a bit strange, but okay, from the bottom right here, you can see that it's pretty similar between the number of players and the number of tournaments in terms of representativity worldwide. And the colors are by continent: blue Africa, orange America, gray Asia, and yellow Europe. However, when you look at other kind of indicators, you can see that it's pretty more balanced in terms of number of candidates in FIDE Arbiter seminar. So this is very interesting. It means that even though there are fewer arbiters in general, for instance, in Africa, you can see that the ratio of number of people getting trained to become future FIDE arbiters is more balanced with the rest of the world. So this is pretty encouraging as well. Also, in terms of number of active arbiters, this does not correspond, of course, with the actual regulations we have. But I thought that as we are building data at the moment, it's fair to start having a look at 5 years rather than 2 years or something too short. So people having at least one tournament as an arbiter in the last 5 years, this is how it looks in terms of split. And this represents approximately 10,000 people worldwide. As I spoke about Eva earlier, we have, of course, statistics about arbiters and women arbiters. And you can see that depending on the continent, the situation is not always the same. So maybe the programs would not be the same. Of course, I had a discussion with Mahdi, with the chairman of the Asian Arbiters Council, and I tried to get from him his recipe to have the highest ratio among the continents, but for the moment he kept it secret. But I think we can continue and try to get more clues on how the other continents can also encourage the involvement of women arbiters. And then, of course, those indicators on the left, they give an idea of the numbers of arbiters we have in proportions of players. The number of arbiters per 100 players. For instance, it's 10 arbiters for 100 players in Africa, while it's only 5 for 100 in Europe. So it means that in terms of ratio, Africa is quite high. So maybe we need to focus more on helping about making national curriculum where it does not exist. I mean, those numbers, sometimes they ask for quantity and sometimes they ask for quality. And basically, when we are together, what's very important is also to cross things. And I finish with this central box here. When we had the call of interest at the beginning of the year, that was really a tremendous success. It's the first time ever that for the Olympiad, we opened a call of interest to select arbiters. And there were more than 500 arbiters worldwide from 130 federations out of 171, I think, which have at least one arbiter. So that was huge participation. There was then a huge contribution for the federations to give feedback. And thanks to those contacts, we could raise from 17% of federations having a known contact in the arbiter sector to 43%. Okay, this is still not perfect at all, because I wish to have to know in each federation who is my best contact in order to speak about arbiters, but at least we increase that. So I take the opportunity of this presentation to remind that it would be great if every of the federation sent to the Arbiters Commission their primary contact, the chairman of the National Arbiters Council, for contacts with the Arbiters Commission, so that we can then move forward, understand which federation have national curriculum, which are very well advanced, and we could even learn from them. That's very important for us. And this is just my last slide on how we can benefit from data-driven opportunities. Of course, common data is very important. So I'm very proud that on my table we had 29,449 tournaments, which is exactly the same figure as Victor presented earlier. So we are clean. But more seriously, this, what I shared, is the result of data manipulated manually from the same source. So this is good. But in the future, it would be really great if we have more robust tools, and then we can really, instead of calculate manually the KPIs, we can automate them, publish them, use them in order to set goals together with you, internally also, in cross-commission when we spoke about women, but we can also have objectives with the Disabled Commission or other commissions who are in direct touch with arbiters, and of course, continents, zones, and federations, which directly benefit from funding, as Sonja spoke about it earlier. When we know about the data, we can identify more easily the key programs we want to put in place. And not only it's easier to identify, but it's also better in terms of quality of which target we define together. So I think I didn't check how much time I took. I should be approximately in the time assigned to me. I hope that we have a lot of opportunities to work together in a data-driven approach, as mentioned by Sonja earlier, and of course to help the arbiter sector to grow all together.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, thank you. Of course, we already have requests in for this information. Guys, everything that we're sharing, this is colleagues, everything that is going on today, it would be shared with you. So don't worry, because we know some of it you're seeing for the first time, and you may need to digest it to have separate conversations. But thanks once again, Laura, for sharing again, opening our eyes to see the possibility and what are some of the areas we could look at. As we move on, as we continue with this commissions, we trying to get onto Global Strategy Commission now with Pavel. Is Pavel, yes, my friend Pavel, are you ready?
Hello, everybody.
Let's make sure we allow him. Would you be sharing a presentation with us?
Okay.
Or are you chatting?
Hello,
Hi,
Mr.
Pavel.
President.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. It was a little soft, but yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. So, dear Mr. President, dear zonal representatives, dear colleagues, this is my pleasure to be here and to present the document, which is a common work of big number of experts.
Ее не пускают, поэтому я никак не могу говорить.
Listen, hold on, Pavel. Reminder to mute your mics, please, participants. Go ahead,
So,
Pavel.
Yeah, can you see it now?
Yes.
You can see the document. So this, as I said, this is a product of the common work, huge common work, realized by mainly Rules Commission, Arbiters Commission, Qualification Commission, and GC took also part in this common effort. Just, I would like to say a couple of words in the very beginning regarding this document. So it consists of 3 parts. Well, first part is a reference to basic rules of play. Actually, it's just replicate FIDE laws of chess with some little references. Then part 2 is entirely devoted to specific online chess rules. And then we go to the part 3. So actually, if you know how knight moves, and if it happened to you to play a virtual game on one of the playing zones, so you know how to move the piece with your mouse or touchpad, you can skip parts 1, 2, and go directly to part 3, which is entirely devoted to the tournaments or competition regulations. Part 3A is devoted to online regulations, and part 3B is devoted to hybrid regulations. The difference, I will just explain the difference for those who maybe is not aware of it. So online competitions with supervision, which means that you play from your home, for example, from your place, and supervise only via video conferencing system. And hybrid chess competition means that you're supervised directly, physically by an arbiter, which means that you play from the playing venue designated by the local organizer, and it could be a chess club, chess federation, whatever, and you go there and you play under direct supervision by the arbiter. So if I understand, so my role today is to present this part 3b, which JC was in charge of. So it contains the usual provisions, just general provisions, explain what is a playing venue, what is the role of local organizer, how it works. So of course, all these provisions are adapted for this format, for hybrid format. Then players' conduct, many parts, well, actually the whole document is composed from the provisions taken mainly from laws of chess, some of them from laws of chess, some others from online chess, and many specific provisions developed especially for this specifically for this document by JC with the consultation with the experienced arbiters. Many thanks to Sava Stoisavlevich and Alex Holovchek, who helped us a lot drafting this document. So players' contact, as other articles, contain some over-the-board provisions and specific provisions as well. Arbiters' role, among others, like for example, some parts are taken from over-the-board chess as well as penalties, for example, but it contains many specific provisions as well. Irregularities which can happen during the online play are mentioned in Article 19, and also very important Article 20. If you are going to organize a tournament which will serve for qualification purpose, for example, for the World Championship cycle, I'm pretty sure that some players will wish to use the traditional board. Apart from the virtual board, they will, ask to use the provisional. And it's very important to read attentively this article. Well, first of all, it should be mentioned that it's up to organizer to allow or not this option. So it's entirely up to organizer. And this option can be allowed only if the time limit used for this tournament provided 30 seconds per move increment starting from move 1. Otherwise, it's just not possible. It's not allowed. So for tournaments with classical time format, it can be used. And then it's up to player to decide if he wishes to use this option or not. And if this option is used, and then the following provisions are to be applied and strictly observed. So the whole procedure should be observed by an arbiter. The number of arbiters should be decided by the organizer, but it should be sufficient number to provide with the complete and necessary observation of all the players. That's basically it about this document. And now I would be glad to answer your question.
There's a question in the chat. Pavel, the USA has its own rating system. It has rated these types of hybrid events for several years, and they're saying that there's certainly some unique challenges with these types of events, but they can work. And they found, and this is just a suggestion, we have found planning is even more important than for normal over the board tournaments. I think that's a very useful that planning is even more important when you have. So if you could just have very briefly, because before we move on to warm, any comments on that? You agree? What has been your view?
Sorry?
No, I just want to know if you had any comments on that, or yes.
Sorry.
So
Sonja.
Yes.
Sonja.
Yes.
I have question for Mr. Laurent Frey.
For Laura.
Yes,
okay,
I am zonal president. I have any question.
Okay, no problem. Could be for Laura. Thank you, Pavel. Let's take the question for Laura. Laura.
Yes.
First, yes, go ahead.
I speak Russian because my English is no good. I am speak Russian. Okay, Miss Georgian, translate.
Okay, you have a translator. Okay.
Значит, было заседание судейской council, и там вопрос о том, чтобы судейские семинары на международном семинары были только на английском языке. Я считаю это категорически неправильно в настоящее время, поскольку большинство жителей, значит, людей земного шара говорят на разных языках, не на английском. Это можно сделать постепенно. Я вчера разговаривал с господином Дворковичем, он, конечно, со мной согласился, поэтому я думаю, он глубоко ошибается, надо это сначала было посоветоваться. Ирина, транслей, пожалуйста.
The translator.
Sorry. Yes. So Mr. Hosantor Dalev, zonal president of Zone 3-4 FIDE, is asking Mr. Freud about the latest meeting of the Arbiters Commission, where there were presented the draft regulations for the arbiters. Regarding the titles, that there will be the seminars included, new seminars for the international arbiters, and these seminars should be only in English, so that the persons who don't speak English, they won't have any chance to learn to receive the international arbiter title, and it's really not fair, because not all of the people around the world speak English so good so that they can learn in English some chess rules, and it may be unfair for them. So, and he spoke with Mr. Dvorkovich about this, and as I assume, he also supported his notion.
Let me comment before.
Let the president speak. Yeah, go ahead.
Husan, let me comment.
Так сложилось.
Husan, let me comment now. I think as we discuss this matter, I can make a comment. I believe that we should make a difference between the necessity for international arbiters to have English proficiency in English for the purposes of conducting their activities at international tournaments, and seminars where arbiters are learning how to do things in chess competitions. And we already have experience in other commissions, including Trainers Commission, where we split our seminars into regions and have those seminars in different languages, and it's normal. In the like Russian-speaking environment, it's Russian. In Spanish, it's Spanish, Portuguese, English, French, and other languages. And I think it's okay to continue like that, while requiring arbiters, of course, to learn English. That's good. That will help everyone, both to communicate and to provide professional services for chess. So we should be I think, balanced here. Mr. Turdaliyev is right. We should not make revolutions here and do seminars only in English.
I should comment, dear President. We are introducing new seminars. And the point is following our meeting in Budapest last year when we had this point, when the idea is that for years, it is written that IAs, so the top level of arbiters, are expected to speak English, not FIDE arbiters. So of course, FIDE arbiter seminars, they continue to be given in various languages. However, following the discussion in Budapest, we took into account the point that IAs are expected to speak English. If it's different now, we can of course adapt, but our point was to align the standards for new things for the future, having those.
No, Lauren, my position is very simple. I think that international arbiters should be able to speak English at a certain level, but that doesn't mean that all seminars should be conducted just in English, since to speak at a certain level that is sufficient to be an international arbiter and to understand deeply all the details during the seminar is a different thing. I think we should not hurry up with having those seminars only in English. We can, as Mr. Turdaliyev said, do it step by step, moving gradually to the new form.
Okay, I'm happy that you are aligned with the step-by-step leitmotif of the Arbiters Commission. We will adapt. Sure.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Pavel. As we move along in the agenda, we want to welcome Eva, the other female with me. Thank you, Eva, for saying yes, to share a little bit about what's going on with WARM and really what role we could play within the zones to assist. Go ahead, Eva.
Thank you, Sonja. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, I would like to share with you some of the activities, visions, and challenges of the Commission for Women's Chess. There is obviously huge support for women in FIDE, and we have no doubt that practically everybody wants to see increased number of women participating in all aspects of chess life. However, without the right processes in place, this support will always be random. That's why our Commission is working to find powerful practical ways to achieve stable and long-lasting results. We are using strategic approach to help empower women in FIDE, and first important step was taken during presidential board in Astana. Our offer of 25% quota of women's participation was accepted. And this was a clear and very important signal that women in FIDE are wanted. Ever since, we are continually focusing on free education to help fulfill this quota. And I must say that there is a big interest from women around the world to participate in free seminars for arbiters, trainers, international organizers, and other educational seminars. We wouldn't be able to offer those seminars without help of my colleagues from other commissions. And I want to use this opportunity to thank them for their excellent cooperation. Also, I want to thank all Continental organizations for their willingness to discuss support for women with our commission. And indeed, many fruitful projects were accomplished from those discussions. But even though cooperation with Continental organizations is great, processes are needed to make this support stable and permanent. That's why we prepared a Year of a Woman in Chess 2022 project, already approved by FIDE Council. So why 2022? Because of the pandemics, we are not able to do anything more, anything big earlier, because everybody is now focusing on fighting coronavirus, and rightly so. So let me introduce this vision to you. What we want to accomplish by the year 2022. So again, Year of Women in Chess, we would like to advertise female initiatives in various ways. We would like to organize mass online tournaments for girls and women. Of course, hopefully in 2022, regular tournaments will be allowed, but we want to use the opportunity because as you can see from the pandemics, we are all learning to work online more, and I believe that this good habit will actually stay. We would like to launch monthly Women in Chess e-magazine, and there we would like to give opportunity to some women who can act as role models for others, and maybe conduct some interviews with them, and generally talk about all activities related to women in chess in all continents. One more thing we would like to add, and this is something not only for women, I believe also for men, it will be very useful to consider. We would like to start educational seminars and add sports psychologists, so we can make access to mental health more available for mostly women. But again, I believe that this would be good also for every chess player, actually. Unfortunately, we have seen some sad events this year, and some great people passed out, and maybe we can prevent such tragedies in the future. But what is most important, and the goal we want to achieve the most by 2022, is to encourage continents to spend 25% of their development budget on women. We would like to see each continent have a working commission for women's chess, and those commissions would make decisions how this money for women would be spent. This way we can put women at the decision-making table, which is very important for us, not only to increase participation of women in general, but also in leadership, women in leadership roles, and give them opportunity to make important decisions within FIDE. At the end, I would like to especially thank our treasurer, Zhu Chen, for her support. Whenever we need something, she's with all her heart there for us. And of course, that is true for all of my colleagues, but especially Chen is very easy to approach and always available for us. So thank you all, and that's all from my side. If you have any questions, I'm also ready to answer, of course. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ivan. I hope you hear the message is clear. 2022, the year of the woman for females and so on. But not just that, as we prepare for 2022, what Eva is saying is that she needs support from all of you. Yeah, I know there are mostly men on this call, but in order for us to do well as females, we need you guys as our colleagues and our friends to help us get there. Yeah, of course, the PDC will continue working with WOM to see how best we could bring everybody together, everybody to the table, to make sure we have the policies and so on that enable WOM to achieve their objectives. I see Hal has a question. Hal?
Yes, thank you, Eva. Great report. And I'm thinking back to the comments of our president about the Queen's Gambit, you know, this phenomenal TV program. Is there any way we can weaponize this? I realize it might be just passing through our collective consciousnesses quickly, but it certainly has a little bit of staying power at the moment. And I don't know, maybe we could invite her to invite the actress to a FIDE event as a kind of a celebratory thing. I don't know what we can do, but definitely this is a real winner. Yeah,
we will certainly invite her for one of the events, so that's for sure. And there is a commitment from some of our partners to bring her actually there.
Wonderful.
If I may also mention, I was lucky enough to watch this wonderful series, and I have some of my friends were already approached from friends from different countries, and they gave interview regarding this movie, and I was also approached just 2 days ago. So it's really huge boost for chess for women. And as far as I know, it was #1 in more than 30 countries. Maybe now even other countries were added when last time I saw the statistics. So yes, I hope that we will be able to use this, and this is a very lucky moment for us, and perhaps also for our vision for 2022. But of course, we need to act quickly. We need to act now. So.
Thank you so much. As we move ahead for the agenda, because we just a little bit, a few minutes behind, but thank you so much for the engagement. You all clearly, we are all paying attention. This is great. We now move on to Shapiso Lopang from Team PDC, the Counselor for Africa, who's going to share with us a little bit about what a particular resource that we've been working on for several months within the PDC, as we see as a tool. So we now hand the floor over to Shapiso. And of course, Carolina will help by sharing her presentation.
Okay, good day, Tim. I think, yeah, protocol has been observed. I will just go straight into the content of the presentation. Yes. On this presentation, I was working with Ms. Melinda from Albania. She's here with us today. So we will be giving you an overview of the FIDE management manual. So on the background, we all know that FIDE is responsible for development of us as administrators, and we know the activities that FIDE is doing affect us as administrators. And our responsibilities include promoting the sport and also promoting the leadership skills of our federation leaders. So as FIDE, if we can adopt this manual, it will enable the federations to, okay, there is some noise interaction. Can someone mute? Okay, I was just saying the adoption of the manual will enable our federation to promote value-based leadership and continually improve our leadership performances. As we have seen the statistics that the Habitats Commission shared, PDC shared, and GSC. Go ahead, Carolina. So the purpose of this manual was basically to provide a framework for managing chess development risk and opportunities. We have seen Sonja sharing the FED forums. We have seen the opportunities and the risks. So by this manual, I think we'll be able to give administrators more information so that we can eliminate the development risks by taking preventative and protective measures. We have seen that in some of the zones, we had one president attending the forum because of the challenges. But in some zones, there were opportunities. A lot of people came on board, and we managed to share the PDC strategy. Go ahead, Carolina. Okay, our scope is mainly on the management of federations. Like we have alluded, there is a need to build a base in platforms like chess in schools. We want federations to start building their brands. There is an issue of CSI, the corporate and social responsibilities that Sonja mentioned when he was talking about PDC being the base in those activities within different countries. So like I mentioned on this initiative, the co-leaders are me and Mrs. Melinda Pilinshi, who is here with us today. So we were the co-drivers of initiative together with Team PDC. Now, the most important thing is on the success factors. As federation managers, we need to be committed to whatever we are doing, and we need to be responsible, to take responsibilities and be accountable. As councillors, as zonal presidents, you need to account for the zones. So you can imagine Zone 4.1 having an engagement out of maybe 7 countries, and is only 1 country showing up. So this means that as the zonal president, you need to be worried, because it really means there is something that is missing on that zone. So for us to be successful, we need to account. And the other issue on the success of this manual is for us to have effective policies that are compatible with the objectives and directions of federations. So I've seen one slide from Sonja that she was talking about the feed points, where the federations are feeding into the zones, and all these 5 zones or 6, whatever zones, will be feeding into the continent, and the continent feeds the FIDE plan. So if we have effective policies, we will be able to be compatible. The other thing for us to be successful is the continual performance evaluation and monitoring. So they normally say after establishment, you need to implement. So we need to put these management skills into place, and we need to maintain them so that they don't collapse, because we need continuous process or continuous improvement for us to, to achieve the goals that we want to attain. And then lastly, on the success factor is the integration of the management manual content into the federation's business processes. We know that if there is no integration, we are going to be missing on some of the key points. We know our product is chairs, but when the processes are not integrated, we know we're gonna miss something along the lines. So for this manual to be successful, and for the leadership team to be able to manage players successfully, we need those integrated processes. As for the approach, Sonja alluded earlier that the draft is done. We shared this manual with other federation presidents. In Africa, I remember it was Bernard, then Asia, it was Samir, there was a nominee from Europe, there was a nominee from Americas, together with other key stakeholders, including the leadership team of FIDE. So I think we are in the final draft. From the final draft, I take it that if this thing is adopted, then there will be design and publication of the manual. Go ahead, Carolina. Now here is just a table of content that is briefly showing what will be on our management manual. We have the remarks from the president, executive director, and the chair, Ms. Sonja. And then from there are other key topics that the manual will be focusing on. We have management skills, we have communication, and I think this will really help federations in terms of their day-to-day management of their federation. One can say we have picked during the 4th forums that invites were sent, but some leadership team members did not even acknowledge the email that was sent to them. And it really shows that there is a gap in that area. We are having issues of decision-making whereby the turnaround time just to conclude a matter can take from maybe 3 to 6 weeks. So if we are all aligned in terms of decision-making basics, this will assist us in going far in FIDE. I think these are just basic. Some of the areas like corporate governance, good corporate governance. Sonja, I've seen that there was a slide that she'll be covering together with the Ethics Commission Chair, which is really a very good thing. So these are just the basic like management skills. I know that most of us here are leaders and managers in our workplaces, but we need to you know, to revive our management skills here and then. Okay, our main sources of information, the manual actually was getting a lot from the International Olympics Committee and the International Basketball Federation handbook. So we tried to, you know, bring the information together so that we can produce this management manual. And mind you, Miss Melinda is a certified Olympics committee trainer. So, you know, Melinda being part of this, we know will go far in terms of like development. And then there's this other area on the Pdc Resource Library. If you go into PDC website, under PDC resources, that is where you are going to be finding all these presentations, all these management manuals and other sources of information that you want access to. So everyone has access to this information. So when there's change of leadership, all you do is just hand over to say, you know what, I've been a president for 4 years, but if you want all the information, go into PDC website to access this information. That was it from me and Team PDC. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you so much, Shapiso, for sharing. And again, a lot of work went into this. So I just want to say on behalf of me as chair, thank you for the work you and Melinda did. And of course, the rest of Team PDC in terms of their input. This is not an approved document, as she said, it's still in draft. But again, once it's completed, everything would be posted on the PDC's website. Yeah, of course, once we get all the approvals. Now, we're still running here, trying to catch up a little bit in terms of time. So I think what Shapiso said was a very good segue in terms of the next session. So we decided to have a special session. You know, once you have Francois Stridham in a session with zonal people and the rest of us, you know, it's a special session. So we're very happy to have him because of what we've been seeing and so on at the PDC, and of course in discussions with the Ethics Commission, we felt this might be an opportunity to do a very brief presentation on something that we mentioned before, which was good governance, because we felt that even though we could have all the metrics and so on, if we don't have the underlying, a strong framework underpinning all of this, we will not achieve what we set out to achieve. So we're going to take you a little bit. I will co-facilitate with Francois on this. So again, we're going into good governance, but before we start, I mean, as we start, we're going to start with the definition. So we move to the next slide. So, I mean, of course, I'm not going to go into what those basic things are. We know from the previous slide that when you have failings in governance in terms of how you operate, you're going to see clearly where your reputation is affected. Yeah, so sometimes you might find that, you know, we asking for a bit much, or why it is we want this and so on. It's because we want to make sure that certain, your governance framework is strengthened in some way. Yeah, so we start by defining the sport governance here as it relates specifically to the exercise of power and authority in sports organizations. And here you have some keywords like policy making, organizational mission, membership, eligibility, regulatory power, and the appropriate local, national, international scope. So when you see sport governance, to me, I think of FIDE, because you realize many elements are covered when you look at this definition in terms of the work that we do in FIDE. So as we move on, why is this important? So very quickly, why is it important to have good governance? Because some people ask me the question, well, why are we even doing this? Why are we going through? The fact is that governance, good governance builds trust, growth, and performance, which in turn affects the organization's reputation. So I think if you look at governance in this context, then you would see why it is important when people are coming to you and say, what's going on with your governance? What's going on with your policies? And all those kinds of things. If they are not there, that means automatically you are, or your institution is at risk. As we move on. Another very important, we all know that we can't really do what we need to do on this in terms of, we can't do what we need to do as FIDE without trust. You would see in this graphic here, just some of the snapshot of some of the stakeholders that we need to make sure have trust in our institution, from the players, which we know, parents, coaches, arbiters, organizers, sponsors, and of course the government, right? Because they need, remember, you operate within an ecosystem, so it's important that you build trust with these stakeholders and many others. We move on. So this is the example. So what FIDE has done, and this is just, again, because it understood its stakeholders, we had earlier this year the creation of the Athletes Commission, which is a very, very important initiative by FIDE, because it speaks to participation and people involved, and that's how you start building trust, when people are part of your process. We move on. I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly because I want to make sure that we get to the end and get to the questions. So again, we're looking at governance as it relates. So we're looking, how do you grow? Because many federations ask, okay, we want to build our base, we want to grow and so on. But it's very difficult to grow sustainably without looking at how it is you're structured and what is the associated governance with that. Yeah, because for example, a simple thing like what Eva was saying, if you make even a change in policy as it relates to how you engage females, people with disabilities, these are the ways in which you could grow your base in a sustainable manner. Yeah, so again, looking at gender equality type policies and so on, which again speaks to the diversity and so on, helps you to go on that path towards sustainable growth. We move on. And again, performance. So many times we move day to day in terms of what we do, the run-of-the-mill stuff. But again, what the PDC is asking federations to do is look at your performance. How are you doing? Are you having conversations about how you're doing? Are you achieving your objectives? First of all, do you have your plans? Do you have set objectives for a particular year and so on? And even if you have those documented, we don't want it just in a document. We want you to refer and actively monitor these things, because that determines your performance. If you really want to achieve something grand in the scheme of things, you can't continue doing things in the way you used to do so in the past. So you need to make sure you beef up on your governance and of course your controls if you want to enhance performance. So we again, the IOC is a good partner of FIDE. So we said, let's use the equivalent of what they see as their key principles of good governance as it relates to international sporting associations. And I'm going to quickly take you through. There are 7 here. Each of these, I'm not going to focus on any one in any length of time, again, because of time, but remember, all this information is going to be shared with you. So we move. So of course, in vision, mission, and strategy, you see that we ask for any request in PDC, tell us, what are your objectives? What are you hoping to achieve? Of course, in the context of what you see as the vision and mission for your federation, to make sure that those goals and so on that you have are smart and that you measure via KPIs, right? So even this is a simple, what we're trying to do at PDC is to help strengthen the federations from a governance perspective. As we move on, it's important for there to be democratic processes. I'm not going to go into details with this because Francois is going to address this in detail in his segment. So here you just have the basic definition as one of the key principles. We move on. So what is required of all these institutions of sporting organizations and any institution is that we must strive for the highest level of competence, integrity, and ethical levels, right? This is very, very important. It's not just about picking people who are popular or so on. It's important that we really focus when we're trying to make sure we elect a board or nominate persons to serve, that some basic values are part of their character and what they bring to the table. Because we spoke, as Shapiso said, about risk and so on, all that is risk to the institution if we don't uphold some of these principles. As we move on further, transparency. Well, we've heard this word like at least 10 times during this this session, this meeting, but we continue to harp on it because we spoke about trust and so on. It's important that you have transparency. FIDE, as a FIDE president from the highest levels, the executive director, they are very, very, they really focus a lot on transparency, and we are asking that federations as well seek to do the same, because we realize that once there's no transparency, it opens itself to skepticism and all sorts of other negative things that would really make it difficult for you to achieve your goals. We move on. Solidarity. So, and this is, we looked at this and we like this particular definition in terms of a responsibility to internal and external stakeholders. We forget that we have a responsibility. You know, we're busy with our own agendas sometimes and forget that our responsibility is broader than the one that we have for ourselves. So solidarity is a key principle that we need to make sure we engender as we operate our institutions. Commitment, participation, and care of athletes. I think that that's almost self-explanatory as we move to the next slide. Harmonious relationships with governments without losing autonomy. Remember, we do not operate in a vacuum. We operate within a country or within a society with laws and regulations and so on. So everything that we do, from what we have, from our own charters and so on, must be aligned with the laws. It cannot be at variance with the laws of the land as well as with FIDE. So it's important that in order to keep that harmony, that we make sure we cooperate and we coordinate to make sure we abide by the laws of each respective jurisdiction. So we now move on to, I'm now going to introduce Francois Stridham, who will take us through the next two segments on democratic processes and internal control. Francois.
Thank you very much, Sonia. Welcome to everyone. It is such a privilege to address such a distinguished audience. I know you all are leaders in your own right, and you all have come through the ranks in your own federation, up to zonal level, up to continental level, and up to FIDE level. But the idea of Sonia's commission, the PDC, is to empower our zonal representatives to give leadership in the federations. So often a past president in the federation moves into the zonal or moves up the ladder to FIDE and do not have the tools to give back to his old federation. And what I want to say is, let's not try to reinvent the wheel. We have in FIDE the benefit of all the collective wisdom, and one is never too old to learn. And rather than being a Thomas Edison who wants to invent the new electrical globe, I want you to be a copycat. Be a copycat. In other words, take the best from what we can get from other federations and apply it to your own federation. Improve. This is easier. Anthony Robbins, we all know the self-motivation guru of America. He says if you want to reach success, what you must do is you pick your hero, your idol, and you copy him. And then you will get to where he is. So this is the trick. Let's not reinvent the wheel. I'm asked to speak on democratic process and internal controls. And Carolina has the first slide up there. I read the definition there. Democracy is based on the idea that everyone should have equal rights and be allowed to participate in making important decisions. In other words, it's the opposite of an autocracy. We don't want one person in a federation that's there for 30 years and does everything his own way and never empowers younger people to come up and learn from him and take over. There must be a succession plan. You must empower, always mentor someone else so that you can, after 2 years or 4 years in the saddle, you can move on to something new and someone else can take over from you. And then the second bullet point on the slide, a democratic process characterizes a system of government that is of the people, by the people, and for the people. And you can see the application of that in the next 3 bullet points. Next slide, Carolina, please. So a big part of the democratic process, as we all appreciate, is the election process, that there are fair and transparent elections. I've just put some of the building blocks on the slide there. So if we move from left to right, top row, and then go down, there must be regular elections. Whether your constitution provides for a 2-year term, a 4-year term, there must be regular elections. And our FIDE president has set a wonderful example in the FIDE constitution by limiting the term to 2 terms and then making room for someone else. So that is a precedent that we can also follow in our own constitutions at home. And then as far as the election is concerned, the second block, the rules, there must be rules, there must be certainty, there must be transparency, the word you've heard so often today. And that the documents to set that out is in the constitution and then supplemented by more detail in the electoral rules. Then it is a good idea to either have an elections officer, one individual that will control the elections, or perhaps a committee. And because it's new, permit me to say, in FIDE, in the new charter, we have an elections committee consisting of the chairs of the Verification Commission, the chair of the Constitutional Commission, and the chair of the Ethics Commission. So it's 3 chairmen that ex officio form the elections committee and will deal with all of the aspects of vetting the delegates, vetting the candidates, and so forth. And again, I'm saying you have to be a copycat. So look at what FIDE is doing. Ask yourself, is this something you can use in your home federation? Copy it. Then the process, of course, there must be a nomination process for candidates. The election committee must check the eligibility of candidates. You don't want people with criminal records as your president. You don't want people that have made themselves guilty of multiple transgressions of the code of ethics or code of conduct to be your president. So there must be rules, because you can't, if you don't have a rule, say that guy that was 5 years in jail for theft, he cannot apply, because there's no rule that says he cannot apply. But if you put the rule there, well, then you can disqualify him and avoid embarrassment to your federation. Then of course, the voting members must be in good standing, and someone must check their credentials. You must have a quorum at the meeting, because otherwise, if the meeting is not quorate, then the election is not valid. You can have a secret or open ballot. Once again, this must be provided for in your constitution. Scrutineers to help on the day of the voting, count the ballots and so forth, and the announcements of the results. Next slide, please. So in the decision-making process, think what a chess player would do. No, that's my next point. I want in the decision-making process for you to consult widely. And again, our president, Mr. Dorkovich, is a wonderful example in his dynamic leadership that he's shown in our organization. He is for sure consulting widely, consulting the members. This is the federations and FIDE. In a federation context, it would be the regions or the clubs. You must consult the experts. You might have sport law, sports management experts, accounting experts, lawyers, and consults the players. There's worldwide this movement, as FIDE is also followed now, of having an athletes commission, and often in the management boards, the constitutions provide for a seat for a athletes representative. Next slide, please. Then the decision-making process, you can follow the steps there. When I saw this graph, it reminds me of Alexander Kotto's book, Think Like a Grandmaster. And I know I'm in a very distinguished company here with Victor Balagon and other strong chess players, but this is actually second nature to a good chess player. You don't see a move and then you don't think any further and you make that move. Now, the same you should do in your management decisions. You should identify the decision or the option. You must gather information. You must identify alternatives. You must weigh them up and so forth. Next slide. Now, in the decision-making process, remember we are busy with democratic processes. Everyone's voice matters, everyone in the structure. And therefore, the work is mostly done in commissions and committees. It shouldn't be done in the General Assembly. At the General Assembly, if everything works smoothly, you receive a report from the relevant commission or committee. Everyone has read it beforehand, and there's a proposal which is made the subject of a decision. That's not the place to do the work and to have a debate about between 150 people about the point, which could have been canvassed better at committee level. Your management board, which runs the organization in between the meetings of the General Assembly. They are part of the decision-making process, the day-to-day management, your General Assembly or the Congress, and then the social media tools, websites, Facebook and WhatsApp groups to solicit opinions from people, to get ideas. Next slide, please. Now we're getting to internal control. So what is the meaning of this? This helps to prevent your federation from financial, strategic, and reputational risks. That is why it's important to have these policies and procedures in place to protect the organization and to create an atmosphere of compliance amongst its workers. And next slide, please. So some of the risks, this is by no means all of them, are listed on the left-hand slide. On the left-hand side of the slide is the imbalance of a power. Let's picture a very dictatorial president in a federation, who it's his way or no way. Now, the constitution of the federation should have built-in checks and balances. It's not about the person. You mustn't write your constitution with the idea of keeping Francois Strydom out of power. The idea is, regardless of the personalities involved, to create sound principles of good governance, to prevent an imbalance of power. One person shouldn't have all the say. To prevent abuses of power. For instance, because you are the president of the federation, doesn't mean you can fly business class on holidays and the federation must pay. But there must be ways and means to pick this up and to rectify that. And also to rectify the various other forms of unethical conduct that there may be. Now, just for comparison, because I've asked you to be a copycat, to look at what FIDE is doing and to see whether you can replicate this in your federations. In FIDE, these types of risks, the checks and balances are provided by the 3 independent elected commissions, and you see them on the screen. Once again, most of the commissions in FIDE are appointed by the FIDE management team, but these 3 commissions are elected by the General Assembly. And this is meant to be the counterbalance for the exercise of power by the FIDE management board and to make sure that they play the game within the rules. Next slide. So here is just a few of the ideas within the context of internal controls. Important topics, each one of them own. You can just take note of that for the moment. Next slide. So I want to say a little bit more about the one area of your internal control, and that is the area of ethics. And I want to spend a little bit more time on this. So in law, you have the principle of legality, and you have the Latin phrase nullum crimen sine lege. And if I can translate freely, no crime without a law. Now, what this principle dictates is that offenses must exist and must be clearly defined beforehand. You cannot invent. If you feel someone's conduct is inappropriate, you cannot say, well, I decide this is an offense and we're going to prosecute this person and we're going to give him a punishment. You cannot invent offenses and sanctions after the event. It must exist beforehand. So the sanctions must be well-defined and predictable. So every member that signs up for your federation is bound by the constitution, is bound by the other rules, and he knows if I insult the president, then I can get a ban or I can get a fine. This is the consequences of my action. And then the rules cannot be bent to apply them to situations that they weren't intended for. So clearly the rules must be clearly understood and easy to understand. And again, it's not good enough to just formulate a rule to say someone has a duty to do something. You must also say what will happen if he breaches that rule and what will the sanction be. Now, I want to use just one example, which is perhaps appropriate in this meeting, seeing that it's the Zonal Council. This is a real case that served in front of the Ethics Commission. I'm not going to mention names, just to illustrate the principle. So we had a case in one of the continents where some players played in a zonal championship, individual championship, without selection or the approval of the federation. They did so because they played on the invitation of the Continental president. But they were playing under the flag of their home federation. And the home federation was very upset about this because they thought that this is upsetting their selection process where they select players according to rating, and people shouldn't enter the championships through a back door. And they forbid the players to play. But the players took the view that they were invited by the Continental president and they are allowed to play, and they did play. And when they got home, they walked into a disciplinary proceeding, and they were banned for 2 years from all chess activity. And the matter came to FIDE, and we set aside these bans for various reasons, but the one that's relevant for our purpose today is this federation had no code of ethics. They had no known offenses and sanctions. The management board said clearly what these players have done is they've acted against our instructions. They were disobedient and they should be punished. And we think that a 2-year ban is an appropriate punishment. Now, this completely infringes the principle of legality. And one could say that the 2-year ban is an arbitrary ban, and it could even be disproportionate to the offense. Next slide, please. So your tools of control for ethics is, it could be a code of ethics, and it could be a disciplinary code. And in FIDE, the name of my commission was always the code of the Ethics Commission. Now it's called the Ethics and Disciplinary Commission. And Victor, I see you on the screen. I know you were an advocate for this change. And one can ask you, well, what's the difference? And the difference is, whereas your disciplinary code has very specific offenses, it says you may not assault another player. And there's specific sanctions. If you assault another player, you can be banned or you can get a fine up to $1 million US. Where, in contradistinction, the code of ethics espouses certain values in the organization. So they would say that the principles of human dignity, of integrity, of confidentiality, of non-discrimination, and so forth must be respected. So when a member of the management board, for instance, discloses confidential information, that would be a breach of the code of ethics, and he could be punished for that. The same with discrimination. So in a way, it's easier to do it this way because we can't always think of every situation where people can make themselves guilty of misconduct. And on the right-hand side of the slide, disciplinary code, what I've jotted down is provisional measures. That is like a provisional suspension that might be in place until the final hearing is heard. And of course, you have to provide for appeals. This is all in the code of ethics or the code of conduct for the federation. And may I say, I've had a brief discussion with Sonia that the Federation Management Handbook that the PDC intends to publish is a wonderful document, and it even has a draft or a precedent simple constitution in the end. And what I suggested to Sonia, perhaps we can help to also insert in there a precedent code of ethics or a precedent code of conduct. Just something simple to help those federations that do not have this in place at the moment. Next slide, Carolina, please. Then what I found in my own federation is there is a need for a grievances code. Now, just a difference, a code of ethics has to do with the organization bringing the player or the individual to order. The grievances code works the opposite way. This is for the player or the individual to bring the management of the organization to order. So for instance, Victor, my apologies that I use you as an example once again. If I feel that Victor has mistreated me or is victimizing me, what are my rights as an individual member of a federation? There should be a code which says how can I make a complaint against the organization. And Sonia, I'm nearly done. And there should be procedures, and of course you must follow the channels. You don't start at the top, and then the grievances code should provide for different measures and how the problem can be set right. On the right hand, you should have procedural rules as to how the ethical hearings should take place. And I think that is the end of my my presentation. So again, with the other speakers, I invite questions. And like I end off, and this is my message for today, be a copycat. Be a copycat, use the good things that happen in FIDE and apply it also in your federations. Thank you very much, Sonia.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Francois. We'll still take questions, but before the FIDE president needs to leave, and I want us to make ideal use of the time that he has with us. So if there's anyone who has any specific questions for President Borkovich, please say now as we have him, because he does have to leave. Otherwise, of course, he could be engaged after. So let's take this few minutes. Of course, we could still ask questions and have other conversations, but we just want to make sure that we get the benefit. There's a question from Philip Amaku, Zone 4.2. And of course, Philip.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Yes, I give respect to everybody who's in the meeting. Yeah, the presentation as it is right now was meant towards federations. I want to ask, how about the zonal associations? I want to know if this is also trying to them what governance structure they should have, because I know some zones have a constitution, they have a team of leaders, etc. Some zones are also just the zonal president. So I want to know what structure we are looking at.
Okay, so I will answer that. Philip, just to let you know, we will have a discussion, a separate discussion on it. We already said how we need a process to determine what would be the priorities for each zone. So through that process, things like this will come up. But since Arkady is here, I just want to use the last minute for Arkady. Any questions to Arkady before he goes? Of course, we could continue the discussions as we have all of us here. Any questions? Aloysi?
Yeah, dear President, I don't want to hold you too much, but just one question regarding chess in multi-sport events. I know Asia have chess in Asian games. Do we have a plan? Because there are European games. I know that chess might be a provisional sport. There are Olympic youth games or something. So is moving something in that direction?
Yes, I got in touch with most of the people responsible for those multi-sport events. We have chances to be present in various forms, not everywhere in the same form. And the best chance to promote us as potential participants would be in May in Yekaterinburg at Sport Accord and GAIF's forums. And we will do our best to achieve those results. Of course, Europe is crucial here, and I hope to have a meeting already in November to discuss it, but it was postponed to January now. So hopefully we will do that. So it is a plan.
Okay, thanks.
Any last questions? As we have our FIDE president, you'll have 1 minute, one person. Anybody willing to use this last?
Sanjay, if I may add, it is a very big chance for 2023 to have chess at the European Games, but it will be confirmed until the end of this year probably. But of course, we're in touch with organizers. It is supposed to be in Krakow in Poland.
Yes, yes, thank you, Lukasz. If you believe I need to talk to someone before the end of the year, please tell me.
Arkady, I think I just want you to stand right for you to just give the last.
Everyone for excellent presentations. I think those remarks have been very useful. We should put all those things on our website and social media as well, so that everyone will have access to those presentations. We record the broadcast here, and we'll have the YouTube link published, so everyone will be able to like listen once again, or first time if was not present today. And I'm completely open to your suggestions and questions after this meeting. Please send me your proposals, and we will discuss zonal and continental priorities very soon with the framework that Sonja explained in detail during this meeting. Thank you. Thanks a lot to everyone, and good luck. See you tomorrow at the General Assembly meeting.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So guys, thank you very much for attending. Again, if there's anything, of course, offline or so on, because we know we've gone a little above time, but not too much. I want to thank all the presenters today. All, thank you, thank you, and thank you. You all have been really good, a good group and good audience. We really thought about you in terms of the content, so we really hope that it made sense for you all. And we thank you and hope to continue our engagement. Remember, even though we don't have this forum now, we will have subsequent forums to address much of what we've discussed here. Okay, so all the best. Thank you to Secretariat, Elisa and so on, for all the back-end support that you've also provided. Okay, so have a good one. Be safe, be safe. Yes, yes, the time did go. We had fun, Thank you.
Thank you,
What
Sanjay.
about Nick Fox?
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you. Bye. Bye, Max. Bye, 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 really. Bye, guys. Good.